Well, welcome, Shelter FootyCast, live from BackChat Studios. Look, big things happening as always here on the show. We love bringing you all the biggest footy content of the week, myself and Mark Reddings, but no Mark Reddings today. Skeeter, we don't know where he is. He could be gallivanting around Europe for all I know, but may have upgraded, I think, and it might not be because of what you think. Incredible media talent, wide world of sports, 6PR, runs football program over there. I joined him on a Tuesday night on Wide World of Sports, but I think it's an upgrade because this man is out of shelter territory. Busselton's own Adam Papalia. Hello, mate.
Hey, hello, mate. Great to be here. It's been a while. I've been waiting for this invite for a long time,
yes,
too. Especially on the Shelter FootyCast as well, given that's a great part of the world down there where I grew up. So, very good venue just down there.
You're a big Shelter man, and I'm going to give you this one off the top because it's exciting. Before we get into all the footy stuff, congrats to the team at Shelter for winning the best dark amber ale at the Perth Beer Awards over the weekend. So that was for the red ale, which you tell me that's your favourite beer.
It is actually. It is. I'd been getting stuck into the chief brewer down there, Jason Crodaro, for a very long time. Before Shelter even started, he started brewing this beer up.
They're all Busselton boys down there, so you're all connected.
We went to school together back in the day. Of
course you did.
So I was always at him about the red ale and having to get it, into some cans and into bottles and on tap. And look, it's paid dividends in the end because very, very good drop.
Absolutely. So they won a whole bunch of other medals and awards, some silvers, some bronzes, but there's probably a few too many to get through here. So bloody great job to the brewers, all the team, and as you said, to Jason, who made the beer. It's best in the Perth Beer Awards. So
very good winter beer, I reckon, the red ale. Just, when you got your hoodie on and your beanie and you're just cozying up by the campfire, the red ale's very good.
Look at this. I tell you what, this has been implanted here by Shelter. I like this a lot. Shelter, shelterbrewing.com.au if you want to get your hands on some of those. It's surprising we haven't done this together. I mean, we do Fox Footy together every week now.
Yep.
We're on 6PR at least once a week. Oh, no, we do the footy coverage as well, but Wild World of Sports on Tuesday nights, which is actually one of my most enjoyable hours of the week, 6 till 7. But we've never done a Shelter FootyCast together.
No, we have not.
So we're working together a lot.
We have not. So I, very much am happy to be here, and hopefully that means there's a few extra jerry cans of Shelter just heading.
Don't worry, I'll make sure Tom
way.
sorts them out. Now, you got the big freeze beanie on.
I do.
Well done.
Big freeze beanie on today, given it, when we're chatting, it is the King's birthday. I keep getting that mixed up.
Yes.
Between Queen's birthday and King's birthday, but the King's birthday, the Freeze M&D. It's been great to see all the clubs right across the league doing something at all the different venues and doing mini freezes and that sort of thing. I know my kids' school's doing a Freeze M&D event today where I think a few of the teachers are getting chucked in the ice bath and stuff like that, and they get to wear their winter warmer clothes. So it's really taken over everywhere and a great fundraiser as well. But seeing as it is the King's birthday, Scoey, I'm actually, it's a travesty that you haven't been honoured today with an Order of an Australia medal.
Me?
Yeah, you. For services to defenders. How was that? I mean, we put the nomination form in and you've been overlooked yet again.
Tell you what.
I think down the track, Order of a Medal of Australia for Will Schofield for services to actually educating the world about the importance of defenders.
All right, so Adam Papalia has come prepared, ladies and gentlemen. That's very good. I expect to see my Order of Australia as well. That is it. So okay, I'm not going to get into what are the Order of Australia.
Well, basically you can get an Order of, the Medal of the Order of Australia for services to anything, really. Like, so Hamish Blake got one today for services to the arts and entertainment.
Right.
So literally you could be
very funny.
For services to, if you work at a table tennis association for 50 years, you could get one for the services to table tennis.
Yes.
But I think with your promotion of defenders and backmen down the track, I think if you continue on the path that you're on, geez, you could be in line for some King's birthday.
I wonder
honours.
what Skeeter would get a Order of Australia for. Maybe the cheeky punt.
Yeah, punting.
cheeky cigarette with JD and Coke on the couch. Very good, mate. So, Adam Papalia is going to join us today, and I think Thursday, if I can get him over the line for that, just depends how many slabs of Shelter we can get down his throat. So let's get into it, mate. I'll run you through how this thing works. We get into the big issues over the weekend, and gazing across the games, the biggest stuff that stood out to me was umpiring, and And I actually don't love hanging too much shit on the umpires. Bloody hard job to do, but certainly there was some controversy and over multiple games with specific decisions. So that's what I guess, rather than breaking down the rules of the game or breaking down umpiring decisions, these were significant ones in games. There was 3 of them, right? So we'll start here in Western Australia. There was the Elliott Yeo call, which you and I worked on. Yep. As I called this, and I'll be interested to see and hear what you had to say. When I saw this, it didn't aggrieve me too much that it was a free kick. Yes, it was a poor time of the game. No, you don't really want to see this free kick in the game. Like, I'm probably big on that. Is ones when you look at it, you think, oh, don't really. But I saw that and I could see why the umpire paid it. It wasn't completely out of the box. We don't know why it was called. It was an incorrect decision. And in fact, the AFL have come out and said that was the correct decision. You were play-by-play calling it, so you were the first to lay your lips on it. What did you think?
I think I said at the time that he dragged it in the run. So that's kind of my indication that that's what happened.
There's no time for an opinion either. Really, when you're doing, you just literally calling and saying it.
Well, because you could sort of see him. He reached out. Yes. He went to grab the footy. It was just a bit unfortunate in the circumstances that he's laid the tackle.
Yeah.
They're both on the ground. The ball's bobbled out. He's seen it. He's gone to get it. But when you're on the ground, if you grab the footy at all and you get tackled, if you're on the ground, then there's no such thing as prior opportunity. It's just holding the ball.
And that's the rule.
That's the rule, and that's why the umpire paid the free kick. The thing that felt a little bit different to it was that he got back up to his knees and was trying to get rid of it.
Yes.
But he wasn't on his feet. He was on his knees. He jumped on it while he was on the ground. Whether there should have been a free kick to Wardlaw for high contact before that, whether there should have been a free kick to Elliott Yeo for incorrect disposal by Wardlaw in that. That's kind of been the debate, I think, over the last little while, with people wondering whether there should have been a couple of other free kicks paid before that one. But I think the last one that was paid, where he pulled it back in, I think that was correct. And I mean, with all these umpiring decisions, people get annoyed at them because if they happen late in a game, it feels like it's cost you.
Well, the fans that are going for the side, but like North Melbourne fans wouldn't have a problem with it.
Clearly. But I'm talking generally there in terms of free kicks late in games effectively costing the team a result. They get highlighted. But West Coast were terrible for 3 quarters on the weekend.
I couldn't agree more.
That's more to the point of, and whilst we are highlighting these umpiring decisions, which is a hard game to umpire, you look back at the 3 quarters before that, they could barely get their hands on the footy and couldn't win a clearance to save themselves. So that's more what the fans should be upset about, I think, rather than one thing at the end of the game.
Oh, I agree. So North Melbourne, they're the worst side in the competition, and they were outplayed for probably 3.5 quarters with the West Coast Eagles by the worst side in the comp. So couldn't agree more. That's what you should be upset with as West Coast fans if you are. Excuse me. The next one was an interesting one. So this is right in my wheelhouse, scragging backman behind the play. So Mac Andrew was wrestling with, I can't remember. Max King. They were 100 metres off the ball. The ball was moving towards them, though. So 80 metres off the ball, moving towards them. And this exact instance happens every inside 50. So not 20 times a game, 30. Every inside 50, every potential inside 50, there is a forward matched up on a backman. And the backman's trying to stop him from leading where he wants to lead. And the forward is trying to get to where he wants to go. So this instance happens, I don't know how many times, at least 100, given it as both ends, but there's probably 150 of these times by 6 because there's 6 forwards out there. So, yeah, I thought this was a really disappointing call for this one, and given that this is a 3-point game, and I don't think any umpiring decision will ever determine a game. Like the way this one went, the way that St Kilda were able to control the game and keep it from a free-flowing contest is what won the game, not this decision. But this one, AFL's come out and said it wasn't a free kick, and I couldn't agree any more. As a backman, that is your job, to scrag within the rules, to restrict within the law, and I think Mac Andrew did this, and he could not believe it when it was given.
He was pretty lucky not to give away a 50 for dissent probably at that time.
Yeah, because like I said, he would have done it probably 30 times during the game, and Max actually had a go at him just before as well, trying to get to where he wanted to go, which is a part of the game.
And that's the thing, like the contact might be initiated by the forward, and then the defender gets done for retaliating.
Yes.
The big thing, obviously, you know better than me, but umpires are looking for two arms around.
Yes.
If they see two arms around, they're going to pay a free kick.
Yes.
The issue, I think, is are they going to pay that as a free kick in the first quarter and not in the last if it's going to decide a game at the end? We don't want to get to that point, do we? We just want it to be consistent right throughout a game.
Yeah.
But they've said that this one wasn't a free kick at all or shouldn't have been, whether it be the first quarter or the last quarter or not.
There has to be a certain amount of allowance for this stuff. If we paid every free kick in our game under the laws of the game, there'd be 5,000 free kicks a game. There is holding off the ball.
I think the point I was trying to make is, even not just with this one, with some of the other ones, the yo free kick or whatever, some people want the umpires to have a feel for the game, particularly later on in a match, to let things go a little bit more.
Are these as controversial if they're both in the first quarter? Like, do we start the show with this?
Not at all.
No, we don't even speak about it.
Not at all. But do we want them to be let go just because it is that time in the game?
Well, the last one, which is in the Hawthorn GWS one, another game decided by a kick. Luke Bruce ends up finishing it. It's Tom Green this time on James Sicily. It was a tight affair, this one, in Tassie and Hawthorn, as I've promoted, and you heard me promote this across different platforms as well, perhaps. Hawthorn, third best side in the competition. They could be the second, given that Essendon lost on the weekend.
Are they going to play finals?
Absolutely, they're playing finals. Steamrolling. I'm off the GWS bandwagon as well. So, Sicily kicks inside 50. Look, at about the same time, Tom Green takes him down, lunging, late effort, late in the game, the same thing, like last inside 50 of the game, basically, and it's a down the field free kick. Luke Bruce, as the class act he is, finishes the goal. Is the controversy over this one whether it was a free kick or not? Or there was some chat around whether Chol was the guy or Bruce was the guy that should have got the free kick. AFL have ticked this one off.
Yeah. So I think we've seen in the last few weeks that if you make any sort of contact with somebody after they kick the footy, and that's always debatable, that time frame within whether it's in the play or not, it's going to be a down the ground free kick.
They seem hot on it at the moment.
Very much so. I mean, we've seen a couple in recent weeks where there's been minimal contact.
Yeah.
But if you go to make any sort of contact that you don't need to late, then it's going to be a 50-metre penalty. The one here it was probably Chol's kick.
Yeah.
In that instance. So
the scores were level though, weren't they? Scores were level.
Yeah, but Chol's a left footer, isn't he? And Bruce a right footer.
If you can't kick a point from there, you probably don't. You shouldn't be playing as a forward in the AFL.
Bruce, the crafty small forward, who's probably kicked more goals like that through his career. I mean, it's smarter the small forward to run in and grab it and do that.
That happens. You see, I remember Stevie Johnson would be sprinting from the other side of the ground and coming take it. We watched this together. It was just before the West Coast game, and I had it on KO, and I made the comment, you probably almost want a point here because there was a minute left. When you kick that goal, look, clearly you wanted to kick the goal and go back to the middle, but when it goes back to the middle, there's more of a chance that GWS get a centre clearance shot on goal themselves than if they transition from kick in to goal. That kick in goals in AFL, there might be one a game, maybe two if you're lucky. So whereas centre bounce goals, there's a lot more.
Especially when there's been a long stoppage like that and the team can set up defensively for a kick in, ready to try to defend it, as opposed to, if they win it out of the centre and go back the other way and it's a draw in the end. But
overall, to summarise it all, where I sit on it is I'd love the free kicks that don't look like free kicks to not be paid, and that takes into account.
Say that for me again.
Free kicks that don't look like free kicks.
Yep.
Don't pay them.
Okay.
Right. If it looks like a free kick, pay it.
Yep.
And as the game gets tighter, I get even more lenient, and that's just. And I wonder if other fans feel the same.
Is that right though?
Well, right and wrong. I'm not talking about right and wrong.
We want the consistency. So if it's a free kick in the first quarter, should it be a free kick in the last quarter, no matter what?
See, no, I don't think so. No, I think you can be consistent by having some leniency and letting the game go with a bit of feel.
Does that make it harder?
It makes it harder, yeah, for sure it does. For the umpires. Yeah, for sure it does. But just with the look of our game, I think that needs to come into account. Otherwise, you'd have robots out there with a rule book and we'd see 500 free kicks a game. So if we're not going to have 500 free kicks a game, which we don't, I think we can have more leniency late in games.
So bring it back to 20 free kicks a game rather than 50.
You sound like you don't want to have the leniency.
I just want consistency. And if it's going to be that they pay the ones that are a lot more obvious than the ones that aren't, as long as we're consistent with that the whole way through the game, as long as it's the same in the first quarter as it is in the last, then I'm happy with that. Absolutely. So less of those, is it a free kick, isn't it a free kick ones being paid? Absolutely. I think that's great. But as long as that's the same in the first quarter as it is with 2 minutes to go in the last quarter, I just think if we have consistency across the board, as a footy community, we have a better idea of what a free kick actually is and isn't, which I don't think a lot of us have right now.
That's a great point. Will Schofield, not Mark Reddings, Adam Papalia, Shelter FootyCast. Well, there we go. That almost came out of my mouth. It was Scully and Skeet. No, it's Scully and Paps today. Loving this. Now, Paps, where we move to now as we get into both the West Australian games. Fremantle's an easy one this week with the bye. It was interesting off the 100-point win, whether they would have been happy with that or not. But they'll be pretty much how the bye works is as soon as you have that game, they would have had some time off straight afterwards, and they'll be into a full program now. So they'll be in a full week of footy now. You don't want to train and recover and sort of get half a week last week and then give them sort of 4 or 5 days off now and then get an interrupted week leading into the game. They're back on full program.
Didn't
now.
a few of them go to play for the Bali Geckos or something like that? Didn't they head up to Bali for a few days?
To Bali?
I think a few of them went to
Some
Bali.
of them went to Bali.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. I don't have that 100% confirmed, but that was the thing going around. That is it right for players to be heading overseas?
Wow, it's like the umpiring, whether
debate.
it's right or wrong. We just want to be consistent.
I think it's fine. If you've got leave, you're free to do whatever you want within reason.
Yeah, you're right. The trouble with it is especially Bali. So Dan Const is in Bali at the moment.
He's scoping out the Freo players, was he?
Well, I don't know what he's doing, but his kids are sick. His wife is sick. He's been roaming around Bali. So I'm all good for it. So I go to Bali all the time. But there is you can't argue there's not a higher risk of getting sick over there. So say you get Bali belly over there, you get bad kebab off the street. You probably wouldn't recommend doing that, or something happens. You're not in Australia, so that would be what the clubs are saying. But I'm with you. I don't think there's a big problem over there. Let's get into West Coast North Melbourne. We both saw this with our own eyes firsthand. Look. I don't know if we gave it enough how significant this is. North Melbourne, worst side in the competition, win away from home at Optus Stadium pretty easily in the end. Now, I know it was close. I know there was a controversial decision, late in the game. But West Coast were nowhere for this game. I'm telling you, West Coast fans, you're absolutely nowhere. Again, probably third week in a row, I've got some good feedback on social media. This time from West Coast fans, I was too harsh. You just lost to Melbourne. You just lost to North Melbourne. You just lost to North Melbourne. How could I be any less harsh? What are you talking about?
You were too biased last week, and now you're too unbiased this week.
I was correct. I was too unbiased this week.
That's a good place to be in, because if you're getting cooked by both sides, then you're in the middle somewhere.
West Coast fans hated it. I was like, what I hated was your performance. Elliot Yeo, though, I will say this, bit of a shout out to Elliot Yeo. His last quarter of football, I don't think you can play any better in a quarter of football. He had 5 clearances, kicked a goal, maybe. He had 4 tackles. He had 9 touches.
Yep.
He was incredible. He did everything he could to get them back in that game, and they got back. But the leaders for North Melbourne, Jai Simpkin, Harry Sheasel, I'm going to put him in the basket. Certainly best players, LDU, like their best players. I thought Luke McDonald played pretty well.
Yep.
Their best players played well, and they won because of it.
Yeah, Sherry was good in the ruck too, and you think about a few of the little moments. I mean, him chasing Liam Ryan on the wing is a big ruck. It was in the last quarter, wasn't it? Yeah, charging after. I mean, that's sort of the team lifting stuff, isn't it? When you see a big ruck like that, absolutely charging after a small forward who probably should have just run away with ease.
That's mindset. Like that's a mindset thing. They had that all game.
Yeah, and he's been really good for the Roos this season. Wardlaw puts his head over it and just has a crack all afternoon. They'd clearly come with a plan. They were coming off the bye, had circled this one in the book. It was like, okay, we can maybe get our first win of the season here if we come to play. And it was their work at the contest that was the big thing for North Melbourne.
Yep.
Eagles just could not win a clearance in the first half at all. And North Melbourne really probably should have been further ahead.
Yeah, so it was 9 clearances to 0 to start the game. It was 6 centre bounce clearances to 0 to start the game. North Melbourne ended up plus 18 at clearance on the day. So that was always going to be the issue for West Coast was clearances. No Kelly, no Reid, the 2 biggest clearance guys. And Elliot Yeo took a long time to get going. So if you don't have those numbers, then you basically fighting against it because you're getting the footy back, in your back line. So they intercepted well, like usual, West Coast. You're working. You're already behind the eight ball when you're doing that. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more. North Melbourne clearly had a solid game plan. Come over, win the contest. In the middle, win the clearance battle. They got organised behind the footy. Like, they were well organised all day. Jake Waterman kicked 3 goals, but other than Jake, there wasn't a lot of dangerous forwards on the day for West Coast. And North Melbourne get their first win of the game. There was 6 blokes in the middle. First win of the year. There was 6 blokes in the circle.
Are the coaches being too safe? North Melbourne get the win. It's a bloody dour game of footy for 3 quarters before it opens up. Me and you spoke about it during the game,
yes,
particularly during the breaks, about how it was a difficult watch as much as we're trying to pump it up and find the positives in the game as well.
Yes.
But both coaches having numbers behind the ball, it just makes it really tough for fans to watch, I think. And I know it was, 16th and 18th going at it.
Yes.
How do we make sure that the brand of footy being played is better? When you've got 2 coaches with a defensive mindset or afraid to concede too much, wanting to really just stack the back line and not equal numbers across the ground.
Well, to be honest, with this question, it gets asked a lot when we see low-scoring games. So how do we make the brand better? I actually think that the brand's fine in footy. So, look, it was a pretty low-scoring weekend, wasn't it? 2 sides only over 100 points.
Yep.
But that's not always the case either. Like, you look back to last week and we had 7 over 100 points. So, look, I really think sometimes you're going to have a low-scoring game and sometimes you're not. And especially in a game like this where, like you said, basically both sides put a loose behind the footy and it was who wanted to blink first. It was transition game, so the ball was moving, but they were kicking to an outnumber all the time. And North Melbourne weren't going to break it because they were getting the job done. And then West Coast needed the loose behind the footy because they weren't winning clearances. So it just turned into this scrap. I mean, West Coast kicked 2 goals for 3 quarters.
Yeah.
At 2:15 at 3/4 time.
Yeah.
So maybe they just need to kick straight up. To answer your question, I don't think that the game needs to really change that much. Sometimes when you got 2 of the worst sides in the comp going at it. So the other low-scoring game was Gold Coast and Kilda. I don't think either of those are very good either. So when you get those 2 together, less about coaches. They want to win. Coaches are coaching to win.
Yep.
So they're going to do they're not going to do what looks good.
No, and that's the problem, isn't it, for footy fans when you get teams like that are so desperate not to get blown out or so desperate to get a win, they'll sort of just scrap and do it as dour as they possibly can to get the victory.
I was impressed by North Melbourne overall, but they haven't been consistent at that. And West Coast are going to have to have a really good look at what they're doing. Still another week with no Harley Reid, who's been significant in their clearance stuff. Tim Kelly, I think, is out for a little while longer with a hip.
Yep, looks like he's going to be missing a bit of footy.
They're not getting any numbers back anytime soon. Oscar Allen is maybe another week away.
Does the bye come at a good time for them?
I think so.
To reset? I get the sense, just being on radio in the last 24 hours and seeing some comments on social media from a lot of the fans, there's a lot of discontent with that loss on the weekend.
There should be.
In terms of the way the club goes forward and what changes need to be made.
There should be, but you have to understand Adam Simpson was worried about the clearance side of things, and that's what happened, and that's why he had the loose behind, and then they couldn't move the footy. They also didn't kick straight. 2:15, if that's, I don't know, 6-9, well, that doesn't work, whatever that is, 7-9, it's a different game, isn't it? So, I don't know. You shouldn't be happy, West Coast fans, but then again, you're not a very good side, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Adelaide defeated by Richmond, of course. This was on Thursday night, a little while ago now, given it's Monday. This is a good win by Richmond. At Adelaide, probably again, though, I don't know who it says more about. Richmond, we know that they're absolutely ravaged by injury. We know that they're up against it across the board, and they've come off this premiership run, and their list isn't what it was. Adelaide, on the other hand, they were expected to make a leap this year, and they have gone completely backwards. And my question would be, what has happened to Adelaide?
If you could put your finger on that, I think Matthew Nix would like to take your phone call, because they've definitely struggled this season, the Crows. They just haven't had the same ability to score as what they did last year. And I don't know, Tex Walker had a great season and the forward line was absolutely firing, but they've got a number of players out of form. Josh Rochelli's put his hand up and said that he's not playing to the same level and probably has been a bit frustrated that he hasn't been in the midfield as much as what he has been previously or hoped he would be. The heat is well and truly on the Crows right now because, as you said, they were the team that was expected to make a leap. The way they were able to sort of finish last year, the talent that you feel like they've got on their list, that they had all the things there ready to go, but they just haven't been able to do it consistently enough. I mean, even dropping Riley O'Brien and bringing Kieran Strawn in as well. I mean, that's a big call to make.
And so Tank Nankervis, Richmond's leader, had 13 disposals, 43 hit-outs in this one. So that would go a significant way to deciding this one. But clearly, so Strawn, the lad that they brought in, had 13 hit-outs. So they got dominated in the ruck. I tend to think that they were an attacking, exciting, aggressive ball movement side last year at Adelaide. And sometimes when that's going so well, you think, well, we're going to have to go to the preseason and work on our defence because our attacking's sorted. Like, we can move the footy, we can kick goals, we can handle that. So they've gone, right, we're going to defend. You spend an entire preseason defending, and then that seeps into your game, and you're almost doing something you're not good at. Like, they're focused on a weakness. They might have improved a weakness, but their strength has got worse. So now they can't attack. They're trying to defend and they can't defend. And they're just nothing. Like Adelaide and nothing at the moment. And they were, made to look a little silly on the day, to be honest, perhaps. Jordan Dawson was good for Adelaide. He had 32 touches on the day, 8 tackles. He always tries. But then just the names and the numbers and the people drop away. So, like, if you look across touches and kind of impact on the game, the next sort of 5 names sort of Nankervis, who plays in the back line, is pretty good. Michelini, same thing. Scholl, he's running off a back flank. Like, they're all up there in touches. Laird, who looks a little sluggish maybe this year. Dowling, Fogarty, Borlase. Like, their list isn't amazing either, I don't think. So maybe we just expected something from Adelaide that was never going to come.
Yeah, I think with the young talent that they had, that was where we're expecting the leap to come from Saligo, from Rochelle.
He's been good, Saligo.
He has been, yeah. Darcy Fogarty's probably one that everyone was thinking was about to go to the next level. And if you had him and Rankin and Walker in your forward line, you're going to be looking pretty dangerous.
Yes.
But yeah, I completely agree with you. They've lost that ability to have that freewheeling scoring. They're almost like the opposite of what Fremantle were. Like, Fremantle were a team that could defend really well and then try to become an attacking team, and then they kind of lose your identity for a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you can get it to click, then you can make changes pretty quickly. So it almost looks too far gone now for the Crows, given the results they've had to this point. They'd expect to be a fair bit further up the ladder. But it might be just, one step forward, a couple of steps back, and then relaunch again for next year.
They're going to have to relaunch. It's an absolute line straight through them. Perhaps they're 15th on the ladder with 4 wins, so thanks for coming for season 2024. They should just go all out attack for the rest of the year. I'd like to see that. Western Bulldogs smashed by the Lions, Marvel Stadium, Friday night. Lions just dominated this one. They won clearances by 18, inside 50s by 20. They scored a shitload of goals off intercepts. Like, they were... That was Brisbane Lions.
Yeah.
That was what we'd expected this year. And it's been a season of that. We've seen sides playing ways that we can't really imagine. St Kilda was meant to make a jump. Adelaide were meant to make a jump. Western Bulldogs were meant to be way better than they were. Collingwood still sits outside the 8. Melbourne as well. Obviously, a couple of results to go today to decide that. But, yeah, Brisbane, they were what we thought they'd be. And the Bulldogs, to be frank, like, they kind of were in this one as well, kind of around the mark, but just weren't good enough in the end.
Well, they're so up and down, the Bulldogs, this season. Yeah. You sort of don't know what you're going to get each week from them. They're either going to absolutely dominate and share the ball around and run and score and play some exciting footy with the talent that they've got in their team. You feel like they've got all the tools there,
everything
ready to go, but they can't seem to get it to click week in, week out. They beat Collingwood, then they get smashed by, and I know Collingwood have got a lot of injuries, but they get smashed by Brisbane. So they're so up and down at the moment. You can't trust them at all. And Brisbane, you feel like if they can get into the 8, they're always a chance, aren't they? I know they've had a stack load of ACL injuries and they've got a few of their best out.
Yeah.
But if they're about the place, they could really cause some damage in the back half of the season. And if they make finals, they're going to be a threat. I mean, they're the grand finalists from last year.
Lockie Neal. I think the Bulldogs play with arrogance sometimes. So he has 38 disposal and kicked 2 goals. You need to put someone on him.
Yeah.
Right. So Bontempelli was tagged out of the game in this one. They put him forward and he kicked some goals, but he didn't have his normal influence. I think Berry went to him for the day and just completely curtailed their best player. So if you take out Bontempelli from this Western Bulldogs side, they certainly fall away very quickly in terms of quality. Brisbane, on the other hand, if you take out Neil, I think the similar it can be said. So Western Bulldogs have for a long time been that side that goes, we're going to back our system, we're going to back our boys. I just think the teams that do that are just talking absolute shit, perhaps, to be honest. Rory Lobb's in a really interesting situation at the moment. He was subbed out of the game. He was Bronx cheered as he left the game by his own supporters. That information, whether it was leaked, whether it was deliberately put out, that's probably the worst thing that could happen to Rory Lobb. Don't know him personally, but if you aren't overly confident in the way your footy's going and the news comes out that you're going to try and leave at the end of the year and you're not getting a game and then you get put back in the side because there's a couple of injuries or a suspension to Darcy and you play like shit, it's not a good recipe for performance.
I think I saw someone tweet this week, one of the supporters, I can't remember who it was, but they said it might be the first time ever this week as Freo are playing the Bulldogs that a player gets booed by both sets of supporters, because Freo have got the history, obviously, with Rory Lobb, and then he got the Bronx cheers from his own team as well.
That's if he plays, mate. Well, I mean, Darcy's out another week, but if you get subbed out, that means the coaches aren't happy with how the mix of the team is working, and you're definitely a question mark for the following week.
Yeah, he has certainly he's got ability, Rory Lobb.
The year that he had here before he got traded, was the best year of his footy ever, and he was incredible.
Yeah,
Freo, it was amazing for Freo. I don't know, he would have kicked 30-something goals.
Super critical to their setup and what they were doing that year. So he can do it. Again, probably another one of those players that's a bit frustrating at times because he hasn't done it consistently enough. But in saying that, they've got a lot of tools too, the Bulldogs. It's like, if they are all fit, how do you fit them all in?
Yes.
You can't really.
Yeah, but they're never going to be able to.
No. So and that's part of why he was trying to look for somewhere else too. But you need to be playing good footy to be able to sort of put your hand up and say, look, play me or I'm going.
All right, this next one. So usually I'd roll out to Skeeter. I bloody told you so, Skeet. I actually talked him into picking Hawthorn for this one. And but I can say it to you as well because we work enough together to hear my absolute bullshit that I roll out week to week. And he'd go, aren't you a GWS man, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, I'm on the Hawks. Big win from Hawthorn in Tassie. Certainly in Tasmania, this is a different affair for Hawthorn.
Yeah.
Whether it's the ground or the people or the weather or the logistics of it all, but Hawthorn play better in Tassie.
They do, and that's going to come to an end at some point in the next little bit.
That's a good point.
You would think too, so they'll lose that little home ground advantage. It's a unique ground, isn't it, Launceston? It feels like an old. It's slightly bigger than a country footy venue, but it feels like you're in a small country town.
Yep.
It's very relaxed. They feel comfortable down there.
Always windy.
Yeah, it's open, very open.
Like there's a, and it's usually not to one end. It's like sort of across the ground. Like there's one dead pocket. The far side is where the ball stays because the wind's blowing over that side. This is the 5th win in the last 6 matches for the Hawks. I think something like 6 or 7 in the last 9 or something like that.
So what's changed with them? Because early on in the season, people were talking about the fact that they were going to be basically imbalancing the competition because they were going to get smacked by so much each week.
I think their list has changed a little bit in terms of who they have available. Will Day is incredibly important. Like I keep talking about him. He had 26 touches and 10 tackles. Like he was close to their best player. Like Dylan Moore, who missed a lot through glandular fever, is now playing very good footy.
Yep.
So he kicked 5 last week. Didn't kick a goal this week, but he was just really important to their structure now. And they've had weeks sort of a month ago or more where they haven't had a spine. Like that, Mabior Chol was out. They had a ruckman out. Blank is out with an ACL. Sicily was out with a shoulder.
Yep.
All those guys are back other than Blank. I think, and then how they started the year, like they weren't it was either when they weren't clicking or they didn't have the mindset or whatever it was. But Sam Mitchell I'll keep banging on about it.
I was about to say that same thing. I know you're a big Sam Mitchell fan.
Very good coach.
As a coach.
So it doesn't start the way you want it to start. Like he would have had tools in his toolbox to get him going.
Yep.
Scrimshaw getting the big spray, everyone blew up about that. So I watched that and I was like, that's great. Clearly he can take it. So I don't know. I don't know how you see it. GWS as well, right? Like they're nowhere.
Yeah. I mean, they had a good win over the Cats a couple of weeks ago, but
yes, true.
If Toby Green doesn't kick that amazing goal at the end, they potentially lose that one.
Yes.
But from where they were with their ball movement and the way that they were able to move the footy, everyone talks about the orange tsunami, and that's just not been a feature really in the last few weeks, which means Jesse Hogan's not getting as much of a look at it as what he has in the past. We know Callum Brown's been out with that suspension, so they haven't had him as much inside 50. The Giants, they seem to have lost a bit of their identity too. Cornelio being injured certainly hurt them in the guts. So they've still got all the tools again, but their season's going to slip away if they can't start to get back to that winning feeling.
You and I spoke to Adam Kingsley in the rooms before they played over here against West Coast, and he spoke about that tsunami, and he said like a lot of people think that the tsunami is offensive, but it's actually defensive.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the tsunami, I don't think they're defending very well as a team, and that's the pressure gauge. That starts everything for them. If they can work and outnumber teams defensively, then they're already outnumbering offensively and they're gone.
Yep.
So you don't get that first part right, then you can't win. And they're not winning right now. And yeah, it was a good win against Geelong, but you know, I'm still jury's out on Geelong for me. I've called this 6 weeks ago that I don't think they'll play finals. So I don't. Yeah, it's not like they knocked off the number one on the ladder in Geelong. Still got to beat Geelong in Geelong, which is big. And GWS have been able to do that though, so they seem comfortable down there. They've got a lot they've got to work on at the moment. GWS. Yeah,
they do. And again, if they want to contend this year, as a lot of us thought that they would early on in the season, they can't waste too much time getting back to their best form. But when they are, as you said, putting that pressure on and then slingshotting the footy out of half-back, they look super dangerous, and the way they run and carry, but we just haven't seen it enough of late.
Ross Lyons won a game of footy on 51 points. Like, seriously.
Do you reckon he goes home and just uncorks a bottle of wine and just sits back, has a glass of red and thinks, yep, we did it today. We nailed it.
He would love that. Like, he would love it. 51 to 48. Like,
and that's under the roof at Marvel.
Perfect conditions.
That's not in a mud heap somewhere. That is not in torrential rain. That is in pristine conditions, and they've held it to that amount.
I won't lie and say I saw every second of this one. I may have seen less than 10 of them. But from what I've seen, the stats, the chat, this was a Ross Lyon masterclass. They put numbers behind the footy. They allowed Gold Coast to chip it around in their back line. So Sam Flanders, who plays back flank, not very accountable at times. Alex Sexton, same thing. They've had 29 marks between them.
Yeah.
Right. So we saw this. The Dockers did a similar thing with Clark and Ryan against about 2 weeks ago, Collingwood. Right. And they came back and draw, but sides are now going, right, you can have it down the back line, chip around all you like, but you got to move it through us. And this is a masterclass in the air. You cannot attack winning. If you win a game on 12 points and the other's on 11, that's a win, and that's what Ross Lyon will be taking to the bank.
Yeah, I was giving him a tick before when he's sitting back and enjoying it. Again, it's not the most exciting footy. Supporters get frustrated because it's not high scoring and it's not freewheeling. There is some sort of beauty in some of these dour contests, particularly for those that like to see the tactical battle that is going on.
Yes.
But the Saints, they can't rely on that for the whole year.
No.
You can't be winning games every week by holding a team to 51 points because there are going to be days when you're going to get blown out a little bit and you're going to get scored against. And if you can't kick a score yourself, you're not going to be able to win when it gets to the most important part. So they still need to find that balance. Yes, it's a win. They still need to find that balance though. And if it wasn't for a free kick, which wasn't warranted at the end, and again, we're not blaming that completely, but if the result was one kick different, what conversation are we having around the Saints this week?
Yeah, can't score, can't move the footy, antiquated game style. But I mean, like you said, Roscoe will be sitting back with his bottle of wine saying he couldn't get it done. And the team who couldn't get it done is Gold Coast, who cannot win away from home.
Yeah.
So I just looked back through the stats as well. So Flanders had 13 marks, Sexton 16, Ewell 13 in the back line, 12 for Jeffrey, 12 to Collins. I think that's their entire back line. They've had 70 marks between
Wouldn't you
them.
been happy with the days where you could just roll around and rack up some stats?
Actually never happened in my life. Just trying to man up when we had the ball, perhaps. Gold Coast can't win away from home. Sitting 8th on the ladder. They're in the 8.
Yeah, I tipped them for finals. We had this debate, probably 6 weeks ago?
More right, so.
7 weeks ago. You said they're no chance. You said they're no good.
Yeah.
I said they were going to play finals this year.
Would you like to reverse it?
Attached myself to that. Well, when they got in front in the last quarter, I was fist pumping the air. I was like, yeah, here come the Suns.
Mate, St Kilda can't score.
Again,
Gold Coast got 48 points, mate.
Yeah. But
48.
I mean, we see teams that play so well at home, and it's been a trend that's happened over here in the West a fair bit with teams where they play well at home, terrible on the road. Suns are bridging that gap a touch, but they're still not getting the wins when they play away from home. For me, they're another list that seems to have all of the tools in the kit to actually be competitive and to make their first final series ever. But they need to pinch a couple of wins away from home if they are going to make the finals.
It's a classic sort of... I don't want to say they're a young side. They are still a young side. Maybe young of mind. Like they've got some experience now, Gold Coast. Like they've got enough players that have played the games. They just haven't had a proper winning season. They've never played finals. So I think they probably need this year, whether they play finals or not under Damien Hardwick, they need this year to go, all right, this is our game plan, this is identity, this is where we're going forward. And they should be able to ramp it up from here. Whether they play finals or not, I don't think they're going to play finals this year. Same as George.
Haven't had Jared Witts the last couple of weeks. Ned Moore's been serviceable coming in. Looks like a promising ruckman for the future. But their midfield, I think, is elite. And their forward line needs a little bit more help, I think, for Ben King. They need to find a few other avenues to goal, I think, consistently.
Yep.
Bailey Humphries bobbed up at times and played well, but they need to be a bit more of an attacking, high-scoring team away from home if they are to make finals this year.
Took Miller, for those playing along at home, was tagged out of the game. Their best player had 14 disposals, so tick to St Kilda on that regard. Sydney defeated Geelong at the SCG in a bit of a up and down affair. Geelong jumped out of the blocks. They're up by 6 goals in the first quarter. 6-0, I believe. Yeah. And we thought, here we go. Geelong are on. And then I tell you what happened. Chad Warner, Isaac Heaney, and a little bit of Errol Goulden in the space of 10 minutes. There was just no one good enough on the field to match them. Like they were that far in front of the best player on the field, and they're all playing on the same side, and they completely flipped the game.
Their midfield looks so deadly, doesn't it?
Yeah. And
with the addition of Brodie Grundy in there this year, it's just elevated them to another level. He had a great stat line yesterday and was everywhere, especially at the SCG where it's so congested and there's lots of stoppages, and the midfield has such a big impact on whether you're getting the ball inside 50 or not. But they're all slightly different, those midfielders. Like Heaney roams the ground, he can take a mark overhead, he can go forward and kick a goal. Goulden's just your hard-running wingman midfielder that racks up a heap of touches and just works harder than anyone else.
Explosive as well, though.
Really absolutely. Explosive. But then Warner's like that next level explosive ability to just take the game on and run forward and kick goals.
Yes.
Goulden was exceptional again yesterday. That goal he kicked late in the fourth quarter, off a couple of steps from outside 50, just smacked it through, was unbelievable. We were doing this game for radio yesterday. Wasn't sure who was getting the votes yesterday. It would be between Grundy and Goulden. Goulden probably gets the nod purely because he's a midfielder and not a ruck.
Yes.
Do you give the one vote to Heaney? Do you give it to Chad Warner? They were really, really impressive yesterday, despite a slow start coming off the bye.
Geelong, how do you think they're looking at the moment? I mean, they're on a bit of a slippery slope at the moment. They haven't won a lot in the last sort of 6 weeks.
Yep, just one.
Yeah, so are they, like I say, they're not playing finals?
It seems to be heading that way. They'll probably win enough games down in Geelong for the rest of the season.
They're on the top of the ladder 6 weeks ago.
Yeah. It's been a pretty dramatic fall-off. I know they've not had Dangerfield in the team. Tom Hawkins, Jeremy Cameron, any team that's got them in there,
correct,
you're going to be at half a chance.
Yeah.
But Hawkins and Cameron were both pretty quiet yesterday.
Yeah, and so they're the sort of side that once you take a bit of the top end off with Geelong, it falls away pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So that's the way their list is set up, and they've been challenging for so long, and a lot of premiership players in this one as well. But if you take a few of them off the top, and then it suddenly falls to that bracket below, and then you've got some depth players playing at the back end. Their list's not the best in the league at the moment. So
yeah,
it probably sits mid-level.
Not many teams could compete with the Sydney midfield right now, and Geelong certainly couldn't do that.
It's pretty rare over the last few years that we've had such a clear-cut best team in the competition.
Yeah.
Like, I know they don't start well in this one, but then from that point onwards, quarter time, see you later. Like, all right, we need to switch on. Not often we see that in AFL. I can't think of another side that's been. There's always someone else challenging. Like, who's the second best side in the comp right now? Other than Hawthorn.
We don't know. Other than the Hawks. We don't know right now, I don't think. It's like throw a blanket over a heap of teams in that bracket. And probably the Blues,
Carlton,
I guess.
Yeah.
But again, you can't really trust them. It's not the Bombers. They struggled a lot last night. But I guess the beauty of the ladder this season so far is there's teams from second all the way down to 10th, 11th, 12th that are still in the mix to play finals. And if you can string a couple of wins in a row, you make massive jumps up the table.
Yeah, I like a Carlton defeat Essendon last night, a Sunday night game. King's Birthday Eve, is that what we're calling this?
Yep.
Okay,
it is
very
now.
Good. Okay, 96-70, they win by a little bit in the end. Essendon certainly closed the gap late in the third, and we thought that maybe Essendon could run over them, but Carlton too strong in the end. I thought their midfield was great, how Carlton went about this one. Essendon, Nick Martin was the man that put his hand up to try and change this one for them. Had a huge third term, kicked 2 goals. I think he kicked 2-2 in the third.
Yeah.
And he looked like the guy that could really jump up, and then they put someone to him and just shut him out of the game. And that was pretty much Essendon all over. Carlton, this is a big win. This was a sellout game, MCG, Sunday night. Like this was a big game against two sides flying for second and third on the ladder.
Is that almost 90,000 there last night?
Yes.
Is the AFL going to make this a permanent fixture like it is with some of the other ones?
You couldn't you?
Essendon and Carlton, Sunday night before King's birthday.
But like 5 years ago when Essendon going shithouse and so are Carlton, is it selling out?
It's always a good rivalry though.
Yeah.
Essendon people, Carlton people hate each other. It's one of those that's, those traditional Melbourne clubs where they really don't get on. The fans, that is. This one, I think it might become a permanent fixture on the calendar, especially if they're getting that sort of crowd number for a home and away game. The Bombers, I haven't had any trust in them just yet.
You're a smarter man than me, right? You're a smarter man than me.
Debatable.
The percentage.
Yep.
So their percentage is like the 16th best in the comp or something, 15th best or something. They've got a percentage of 100. No one in the top eight's worse than them. Then 9th, 10th, 11th, 13th, 15th, all better than them.
Yeah. It's usually a pretty good
trust
guide.
Factor, right.
Yeah, it's usually a pretty good guide that you're not having convincing wins across the board. And when you're sitting in second spot and your percentage isn't that strong, it sort of feels like a bit of an outlier. Right. They've definitely improved this season, but whether they're a top 4 side, which they were sitting in the top 4, I don't think anyone sort of had trust in them because we hadn't seen them beat top 8 teams. They had a draw with Collingwood. Again, the Pies have been battling some injuries, but we hadn't seen them beat top 8 teams yet.
Yes.
So they're going to be under the microscope a lot in the back half of the season, the Bombers, because they've been given a lot of primetime fixtures too. So there's nowhere to really hide with that.
Yes.
And they're going to have to finish the season really strongly if they want to play finals and eventually try to end that streak of not winning a final.
Their next 5, West Coast at home. They got Geelong, Collingwood, Melbourne, Adelaide. So at least 3 variable winnables.
Crows game at Adelaide Oval? Or?
No, at home.
At home.
So I'd say Adelaide, West Coast, put them in the book.
Yep.
Geelong, that looks like it's away, but that could be up in Melbourne. And then Collingwood, Melbourne are probably the ones which will be difficult for them, but they should win half of those.
Yeah. And the other thing is, obviously, the Bombers, if you don't have a good season the year before, you get a more favourable draw. If you can then take a leap and compete with some of those sides that you might not have beaten the year before, you can see a big jump up on the table in terms of your results. But we haven't, again, I think those games against Collingwood, against Melbourne, against Geelong, if they can compete in those, we'll have a little bit more trust in them, the Bombers. I haven't been convinced yet.
Carlton season's coming along nicely. They're balanced. They don't have too many standouts when they win games of footy. They kick 100 points. They defend well. They keep the scores low of the opposition. Like I think they've got a premiership look to them.
Yeah.
You know, whether or not they can win it, that doesn't mean anything. But
yeah,
the way they play, they're a contested side. They can now score. They're a dangerous forward line. Their midfield's good. With Wiedering in there, their back line's good. They've got everything they need to do to challenge now. So it's just going to be up to them in the last half of the season whether they can do that. And that's how footy goes.
Yeah, exactly. And hope you don't get too many injuries on the way through.
Correct.
With Curnow and Mackay up there, then...
You can win any game.
Exactly.
Collingwood v Melbourne today. Just a quick little preview at this one. We won't go fully into it. We've probably gone a little bit over. That's okay. We've got a couple of questions to get through to at the end. Just some ins and outs for this one. Collingwood, a couple of changes. Will Hoskin-Elliott and Nathan Kruger coming to the side with Ash Johnson and Will Parker omitted. Melbourne have swung the axe a little bit. Tomlinson, Hunter, Woden and McAdam all out. Only Lockie Hunter of those is injured, with Van Rooyen, Billings, Bailey Laurie and Blake Howells back into the side. So Van Rooyen and Billings probably the two that are significant ins for Melbourne. Yeah. How do you see this one going?
Van Rooyen coming back in is really important, I think, as well for the Ds. They've got to respond from that performance in Alice Springs.
That was their last game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Boy.
They went into the bye. They would have had a lot of time to think about what happened against Freo. King's birthday up against the Pies. Again, injury hit. Like, this is a game Melbourne should be winning today if they're going to be a genuine contender this season. It's hard to sort of put your finger on exactly where they've been going wrong, the Ds, this year, but they haven't looked as strong. If Christian Petrarca doesn't, kick 5 and have 30, it looks like at times they're not going to be right in the game. Clayton Oliver hasn't been as dominant as what he has been in the past.
Well, maybe that's it, because their dominant midfield is what made them good, right?
Yeah.
So Oliver and Petrarca and Viney and Gawn, like, they play well.
Jake Lever being out too,
correct,
has sort of changed the dynamic.
They've never really had a good forward line.
No.
Then when they won the flag,
yep,
their forward line wasn't very good, and it's still not very good. But when you get midfield dominance, like sort of like Collingwood doesn't have star-studded forwards, but they kick goals because they get great midfield dominance, and then they just get guys that can compete. So I think it's a bit of a midfield thing. They're not getting the dominance that they have in the past, and so they're having to defend more, which is exposing their back line more, and then you get no lever, and then it looks unsteady. And then their forward line probably hasn't changed that much, to be honest. So
they were all about volume of inside 50s and then converting from there rather than being efficient when they went in.
Collingwood don't get too many names back or numbers back. They're still beat up. But I'm going to pick Collingwood. I can't pick a side off the back of a 100-point loss. That's pretty much. Can you give us a pick?
I'll go with the Ds to rebound.
Okay. It's a big rebound.
A big rebound. However, my tipping has been Scheisenhausen this round. So I think I was on 0 until the Swans won yesterday and the Blues won last night.
So my wife's shifted her focus this week. She's a very good tipper, Alex, my wife. She is on none from 8 at the moment. She's trying to get. She doesn't want 1. She wants a 0. She wants
really?
donuts.
And so who she picked today?
She's tried to pick them all. She's picked Melbourne today.
Right.
She's tried to pick winners, and it got to the point where she's 6 down. She's like, right, I'm gonna try and pick the winners, and they'll lose. So like yesterday, she'd picked Carlton and was like, no, I actually think Essendon's gonna win. Picked them, they lost. So she's on.
That's a very nervous place to be.
Oh, there's only 8 games, wasn't there? So she's 0 from 7.
But when you're sitting there with 0, with 1 game to go, so you just cannot go through and not have a winner.
Well, she's gone Melbourne, so I expect Collingwood to win. All right, perhaps let's get into a couple of emails from our good friends, our audience. Send these in. Make sure you keep them coming. We love seeing them. FootyCast at backchatstudios.com.au, or you can hit us on DMs on social. Shelter FootyCast is where you can find us on Instagram. Hi, guys. Loving the potty this year. Scully, you raised an interesting point in the Monday show this week. You mentioned you'd love to see the Eagles squad with Sam Mitchell as a head coach. Just a little caveat. I wasn't calling for anyone's head, right? I just said Sam Mitchell was a very good coach, right? And
look at you making headlines, trying to get people sacked.
Where the fuck up, Pat. That should be sorry. You can't swear. We can hear.
I haven't sworn so far. Correct. Too ingrained in not doing
correct.
that.
Don't worry. You stick with me for a couple of weeks, perhaps we'll absolutely have you swearing like a potty mouth. Look, I just think Hawthorn's list not very good. I think West Coast list with the best players in is better than Hawthorn's. Like if you gave, here I go again. Say Sam Mitchell got the keys to West Coast. Midfield, Yo, Reid, Kelly, Jimmy, Sheed, good ruckman now, Matt Flynn. Forward line of Waterman, Allen, Ryan, Darling. That's a forward line. Back line, Barris, McGovern. Hoff is a good player. Like he played very well on the weekend.
Yep.
There's a team. That's a team. I couldn't do that the same with Hawthorn. I couldn't list 3 players in each line, which I think are very good players.
So what are you trying to say?
I'm trying to say Sam Mitchell is coaching a bad side at the moment in Hawthorn that has a bad list.
And getting good results?
And getting good results.
So on the flip side, what are you saying?
I'll just get back to the email. That is... Don't bring your media training in here, Papalia. Get it out of here. Hey, I'll tell you what, I've just lost the document as well. Hang on. You bloody rattled me. Just shut up, Papalia. All right, well, no more grabs about that. All right, I'm going to continue with the email. That is highly unlikely to eventuate. I agree. But it got me thinking, do you think it's time for... Oh, no. I have to keep... Do you think
He's completely rattled now.
Do you no, I'm just reading ahead of this email. I'm like, do you think it's time for a fresh perspective with this squad, assuming West Coast? Simpson has more than proven his ability as a coach, but sometimes I feel the team doesn't have a plan B and get creative with pretty talented squad. I would argue Simpson's best work was when he was forced to adapt. The Weagles web in 2015 when Eric McKenzie went down, and in 2018 with young players, e.g. Ryan and Rioli, needing to be played, and the defensive Lysett-Vardy ruck combo when Nick Nat went down. Would some fresh, audacious ideas help the Eagles rebuild, or is it just more where the list is currently at? By the way, I always thought that the Eagles' back six looked better for you being there, Scully. Okay, Michael, that's enough from you.
That's the only reason that email got through, I think.
I can't even... I want to just put it in there myself. Look, that's from Michael. So... Question being, should they be more creative? I think at times they probably could. Yeah, I think at times they could. I mean, we were talking about the sort of, loose back at each time. I felt like they tagged LDU to start the game, and then they dropped it pretty quickly. I think Adam Simpson would be wrestling with, do I train these kids and do I play these kids in a way I want them to play in, 4 years' time? Or do I play them to win right now? Because you could do things right now that might give you an opportunity to win some games this year versus training them and playing them in ways that you want them to go and win a flag when they're ready to. Because they're obviously not ready to win a flag now. So he would be wrestled with that weekly. Yeah,
and which is an awkward position to be in when you're not sure if you're going to be there in 4 years or not. Yes. So if you want to still be there, you sort of have to coach for today, don't you? So that because if you get lots of blowouts, then the pressure comes right on, and it stops with the coach in the end. So unless you have a continuity or assurances that you're going to be there, I reckon it's hard. And I'm not saying just Adam Simpson here. I'm talking about coaches in general. If you aren't being backed in to know that you're going to be there for the long term, you're working on the day-to-day, aren't you?
Yes.
To try to make sure that you're getting results to be there at that time in a few years' time. They played some good footy a month ago, but it's dropped a long way off.
So in terms of the no plan B, I will say that it's difficult to change things in-game. Like, no matter who you are.
They had a bit of a crack at it on the weekend.
Yeah, so it's just difficult to change it in quarters significantly. So at three-quarter time, put Jermaine Jones behind the footy, and I thought looked good.
Is something they should do every week.
He should be. I don't know why they're playing him forward.
Yeah.
He needs to play as a backman because it gives them bounce, run.
Yeah.
Liam Ryan went into the middle. Looked really good.
Yeah.
Looked really good. And you couldn't play him a full game in there. He's not fit enough. Or maybe not fit enough. He's not a midfielder.
They trialled him in the back line a little bit.
Do not ever do that again. He's not a back. Right. So they do those things. They change the way they move the footy. But you still need to be able to talk to the players. So the runner's not allowed out there during the quarters, no breaks. So it's just very difficult with a young side to make changes. So, yeah, just to reiterate, not calling for anyone's head. I'm just saying that some lists are better than others, and I don't know. But anyway, next email. Scully, I still can't wrap my head around the Hutchinson selection. According to Hardy, this would have been on 6PR with you, no doubt perhaps. It was a captain's call, i.e. Simo. How would the playing group handle that selection? They didn't seem to have no options. He kicked 5 against the bottom place Waffle side. Wowee! Doesn't warrant AFL selection, surely. Give him time to build his confidence, get to know his teammates, and get a run of form, surely. Anyway, it's still very flat at that loss. Man, fuck footy sometimes, says Chris. You actually asked this question to me. What was it?
About Jack Hutchinson coming in? Yeah. Brad Hardy said that on 6PR. I don't know whether that is 100% or not because I haven't asked that question yet. But
the coach makes the call. So I don't think he's got inside information.
Normally you've got a match committee, right?
Right.
So what Brad was suggesting was that it was just...
but
literally Adam Simpson. The other coaches went in the room. He put his magnet on the board and he was playing.
Well, I mean, to be frank, like Simo takes the guidance of coaches, but he makes the call every time.
Yeah. Well, the buck stops with him, doesn't it?
Correct.
So he should have that autonomy to actually be able to do that. I think the one that was unlucky, and I know he didn't have a great game the week before, was Jack Williams.
Yeah.
So I guess the question for you is like, how does that go with team harmony and balance when you get a guy come straight in who's only been on the list for 11 days, when you've got other players there that have been battling to have a spot or doing the hard yards in the team at the time?
My answer would be, if it was a good side, it would create maybe a couple of issues. It's like, who's this guy? West Coast aren't any good. Yep. So they're still trying to find what their best lineup looks like, and they're still trying to get their players to play with consistency. And I don't think from a team harmony point of view, like AFL is a brutal industry, and it is highly competitive. Your best mate... I had large parts through my career. My best mates, I was competing directly for a spot in the team with them. And that's your job. Like that would be like you rocking up and every day at 6PR, you and Carl Langdon, your content director, just going, right, boys, all right, who was good last night? All right, Carl, you were better. Perhaps you're out this week.
You have a call
tonight. And you're good mates and you work together, but you're doing the same job.
Yeah.
But there's only one spot for you. Yep. And that's what footy is. So if you can just accept that and that's how that works, then having a kid who's played good form, got himself drafted in mid-season draft and kicked 5 goals in the waffle. So that's a form.
Yeah, he went to take a few good marks. Like he looked like he sort of knew what was going on, but it wasn't a day for forwards.
Nah.
Like as we've said, the issue on the weekend was not about a young forward line. It was about the midfield and getting beaten up at the clearances because they just didn't get any penetration inside 50, and the forwards had a tough afternoon. You know, whether you're Josh Kennedy playing down there or whether you're one of the younger guys, it was a really tough day for the forwards until the game opened up in the last quarter.
Mate, that's us done and dusted. Shelter FootyCast on socials, FootyCast at BackChatStudios.com.au. I'm going to catch you tomorrow on the Wild World of Sport.
It's 6 o'clock every night.
No swearing.
No swearing. I've got a dump button there. I don't think we've got a dump button in here. So I've always got that ready to go for Scully. But no, we always have a bit of fun and a bit of banter on Wild World Sports as well.
Always live here, Paps. All right, we'll see you Thursday. Thanks for joining us, mate.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.